Good afternoon, everyone. This is Don again, and it is time for episode 4 of Practical Reality. It's a Saturday afternoon, and I am back in my favorite place, Donaldson Park, in Highland Park, New Jersey, on the banks of the Raritan River. And before I get into my main topic today, I just want to say a couple of quick things. Number one, first of all, you can hear that it's windy. You may also hear the ducks across the street from me here. But what I want to say, first of all, is that it is not necessary in my mind to make these videos like really polished. What I'm doing here is organic. Comes straight out of my mind, through my soul, onto this screen. Same kind of thing I'm doing when I write my poetry. Straight from the soul, through the pen, onto the page. That's exactly what I'm doing here. And I have said before in other videos that I may touch upon the same subject more than once. And if I do that, it's only because I feel it's important. And if you feel it's redundant, you can tell me so in the comments. I really don't care. That's the other thing I want to say. I don't really care what people think about this content. It's not important to me. What's important to me is that I'm doing it. That I'm getting out there. I'm doing something that I really feel passionate about. And passion is really the source of creativity. So, let's begin. I thought that today I would try to discuss something that's eminently practical. The name of this channel is Practical Reality, and I thought there was a couple of subjects today that I've had in mind that I want to talk about. And the first subject I'm going to talk about in this video today is what makes a great manager. Now, having been in the workforce for 40 years, I have seen great managers and I have seen terrible managers. And obviously, you can hear the wind blowing in my face. Obviously, over time, what has happened is the whole sort of theory of management has evolved. And I think there are a lot of ideas out there today that are wonderful ideas that should be adopted. And I think there are some ideas out there today that whose continued practice paints you as a dinosaur. So I'm going to get into what I call the 3 E's of management. And they are empathy, engagement, and empowerment. Those are the principles I'm going to touch on. Let's start with empathy. Empathy, first of all, is the ability to put yourself in other people's shoes. Feel what they feel and understand where they're coming from. It's amazing to me that this is not put into practice more often. Now, it may be today, but over the years in the work environments that I've been in, it was not a major priority. Let's put it that way, okay? How does empathy help? Empathy lets you know that you care about where people come from, what they've been through. And these days, in these times that we live in, people have gone through a lot. And everybody's troubles are relative. Everybody's troubles are relative. So what may be terribly important to them, you may think is a trivial matter, but that doesn't matter. And if you make them feel like their troubles are trivial, then you alienate them. And I have seen that so often. I had a manager in a small work environment just a few years ago, and he would have the 2 young women who worked in the office come out of his office crying. And they would come to me in my cubicle or my office, wherever I was sitting at the time, and just bawl and let it all out and ask why he's doing this to them. And who knows what motivation this guy had for belittling and making these women feel terrible. Who knows? But that's what he used to do. That's not empathy. That's toxicity. And empathy is the opposite of toxicity. So making people feel like their troubles and what they're going through is important to you because it's important to them. is really key, absolutely key. So how would you go about showing empathy? Sitting down, talking to somebody, letting them know that you care about what they care about, asking them how they're doing, engaging them on a level more than just the surface. You know, as I said, people are going through so much these days. People feel the pressure. And why? Because the media is constantly barraging you with negativity, a constant barrage of negativity. And how does that make you feel? Some people feel, a lot of people feel, like they are completely out of control of their own lives. And they feel powerless. And that is a tremendous burden. People are supposed to feel happy. People are supposed to feel needed and wanted and respected. And yet, what you see on the media and on the news, if you're going to watch the news every night and see the tragedy that happened today, which I'm not belittling any tragedies, I'm just saying that when you see people being hurt and you have to identify with that and you feel empathy for them, you are destroying your own power. And people do that all the time, whether it's intentional or not. And then you have them coming to work in a state of mind that is not ideal. So how do you make people feel as if they're important? You engage with them. That's the next E, okay? You engage with them. You let them know that they have a basis for their own self-respect, that they are in control, that they can do whatever they want, making them feel that they are important and valued, okay? When you can do that with somebody and make them feel like they matter, then they feel empowered. And that's the third E. When they feel empowered. I remember watching the movie long time ago. It was about Vince Lombardi's life. And I remember at the end of the movie, I think it was after he won Super Bowl II, at the end of the movie, the narrator was saying, at that point, we would have run through fire for him. Now, that's a little bit more of a level of engagement, maybe than you might seek in a work situation, a normal work situation. But at the same time, that is the kind of passion that people can feel for something if you make them feel important. Now, another thing about passion. If someone is working in a job just to be there and working and making money, they may not be passionate about it. And you may discover that. And either you make them discover the passion or you have to find somebody else, okay? Being a manager is never easy. But I think these three E's are the way to go, because if you can bring out those qualities within a person, maybe then they can discover a passion. Maybe they discover they're passionate about something else and they leave. What has been the pattern of most people these days? They find a job, they're there for a year and a half or two, and they leave and they make more money, and they think that's the way to go. And maybe for some people it is. I'm not saying that that's not true. What I'm trying to say is that if you find a place where you can work and you feel empowered and engaged, then you don't necessarily want to jump around and skip jobs every 2 years. You find some place and you want to stay. And it's because you feel you are valued and made to feel important, and you really want to make a meaningful contribution to the success of that business. And that's the kind of employees you should be seeking. And that's the kind of employee you can cultivate as an effective manager. You may not even realize this about the person that you have working for you. They may not even realize it until you engage them properly and make them feel empowered. This is the whole point. The old way of doing things is control. You bring a person in, you have them sit down, they work for you. They're there from 8:30 to 5. And if they're arrive 2 days in a row at 8:33, you're down on them, saying, hey, you know, you got to get here at 8:30. It's like, oh my God, give me a break. What does that person do for you? How does that make that person feel? They're late a couple of times, and all of a sudden you're down on them saying, you got to be here at 8:30. That makes them feel completely unimportant. Did anybody ask them why they were there at 8:33 instead of 8:30? No. They just say, hey, you got to get here at 8:30. I've been in interviews with managers, and after the interview, I was like, wow, I do not want to work for that guy because he's just like such a dinosaur. His only method of management is total control. He doesn't know how to motivate anybody. He's just there as a placeholder to make sure that certain things get done. He doesn't care how they get done. He doesn't care about the people who are doing them. That is the worst kind of manager there is. And that is still, in my opinion, the prevalent style of management in the American workplace today. And no one cares. And everybody thinks that that's right. And when you see somebody who's successful and manages in that style, they admire him. And who knows why that person is successful with that style of management. But I guarantee you one thing, I guarantee they're churning through people as a result of that style of management. And if that's how you choose to do business, then fine. But that's not the way to make people feel as if they are important. If you're going to have somebody working for you, and they come into a situation from a previously bad work environment, what's their expectation going to be? Oh, I just stepped into it again. Now, everybody knows when you first start a new job, the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're like, yes, here I am. Oh, this great new opportunity. Then something happens, and what I would call the big disillusionment happens. All of a sudden, you find out, wow, this place isn't the greatest place in this since sliced bread that I thought it was going to be. So what happens? The big disillusionment. And then what happens? Then you have a person who, the new term I'm seeing now, is quiet quitting. They're there, but they're not really there. So what are you going to do about that? Okay? This is when you have to step in as a manager, as a person. What happens to you as a person when you step into that kind of situation? You become a better person. You become the kind of person that people want to work for. So, sum it up. You want to be a good manager. You want people to want to work for you. You want people to be productive for you. Show them empathy. Show them that you want to make them feel important. Engage them in conversation. Don't just ask, hey, don't just walk by and say, hey, good morning, how are you? I want to see this done by 12 o'clock, this kind of thing. How many people have I met like that? It's just ridiculous. Make them feel important. Engage them in conversation that's beyond superfluous. Make them feel like they matter. And then watch the results happen. And the last point I want to make about it is the newest thing I've seen on LinkedIn recently is the results only work environment. Now, who knows if that could be effective? I don't know. I think it's too early to tell. But I think it's a great idea. And what are you going to do with that? How are the dinosaurs going to handle that? The ones who think that clocking people in from 8:30 to 5 is the most important thing they do all day. That's not going to work in a results-only work environment. When I was working for Amazon as a recruiter, I had a manager whose name I don't really have permission to mention, but she was awesome and she knows who she is because I'm still friends with her today. And I was at my computer working at like 8:30 at night, trying to prepare for the next day because she empowered me. She made me feel that good about what I was doing. And I remember a couple of times where she would call me or text me and ask me how I'm doing. And I would tell her, you know, I'm hitting a dead end right now. And she would say, Don, put your computer down, stop what you're doing, and rest till tomorrow. And that's what I did. And she knew that she didn't have to push me to work. She knew I was working. She knew I was motivated. She knew I would keep going. That's respect. And that's why I would walk through fire for her today if I had to. Because she knew exactly how to make people feel like they mattered. And that's the most important thing. Treating people like an asset is never going to get the maximum work effort out of them. You make people feel like they're invisible, and you will not get visible results. It's just that simple. So I hope that, and last thing I'm going to say, there's one person out there on LinkedIn that I follow. I'm not sure of his full name. I think his last name is Miller. Charles Miller, I think his name is. And he advocates shameless self-promotion. And it's a bit of an uncomfortable subject for me because I'm a relatively humble person. But I felt for a long time that if I could find the right organization to be a manager for, this is the philosophy that I would bring to that management position. And I think I would do very, very well there. The whole problem is, of course, finding a manager who would manage me and be willing to buy into that same philosophy and treat people the same way. Are there a lot of managers out there like that? I'm not quite sure. But I would love to find one. I thank you all for listening. This is a great Saturday. It's still kind of cold out. I'm standing here in the park with my hair getting blown around and the ducks making noise. But I love being out here, and this does not have to be like a perfectly polished production. Just me speaking to you, and hopefully you're listening. Have yourself a great Saturday. Going back home, watch the Rangers. Have a great day.